I got robbed and I'm hungry. I am ready for more. We're gonna kick some ass this week. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, Clint McClain. This week, we are picking up the pieces of what's left of my sanity and going to UFC Copenhagen. The nipple rubbing is over. We posted a loss at UFC Mexico, and I am pissed off about it. But I've got a couple things I want to take a second to address before we get into that. First and foremost, I have to give my speech that I give maybe once every 3 to 4 episodes of the podcast. I need to give this a disclaimer. I'm a dude sitting behind my computer who loves MMA and who's a degenerate gambler. I'm telling you my picks. I'm giving you the information that I have gleaned from hours of steadfast, hard, difficult research. Casinos make money because they are not long-term losers. We are going to try to win 55% of our bets. There's going to be a lot of losing involved. And if we have a losing night, don't feel like you tailed my picks and I did it to you on purpose, or that you're alone. I lost money when my bets lost as well. You need to realize that I am giving you my plays, and if you choose to tail them, you are choosing to risk your own money on those plays as well. No one is forcing you to bet. So do me a favor. I'm a very positive person. I like to keep the show all about positivity and try and have good thoughts and wishes going into this kind of stuff. So don't come at me hot when we have a losing night, because trust me, I am feeling it too. I'm not going to apologize for losing nights, because guess what? My pockets get emptied when that happens as well. I do my best, and I pass on my information as a courtesy, and because I love doing this shit. So let's keep it a positive note. That's all. I just wanted to retouch on that fact. Welcome to the show. If you are new to the show, like I said, I am all about the positive game. I want us to have fun here. I want to turn non-MMA fans into MMA fans. I want to turn non-bettors into bettors, and I want to turn bettors into MMA bettors. Let's have fun. Let's watch fights. Let's make money from people beating the hell out of each other in a cage. That is what we are all about here at the Die Hard MMA podcast, and we are a family. So you know what? I'm not going to hold it against anybody. We are talking about money. People are losing dollars here, so I understand when we get frustrated sometimes, so don't worry. I'm not putting anybody on the chopping block or anything like that. I totally understand that temperatures flare from time to time, but let's try to keep it civil, shall we? Thank you very much. That being said, I love you guys, and I am very much looking forward to breaking down this fight card. This is one of those ones where if you have a friend who is on the fence about MMA, if you have a friend that is not sure if they're going to get into this sport or not, this is the week to sit them down and give them a bottle of Fireball and enjoy some shit, because there is going to be some serious action this week at UFC Copenhagen. All right, what is up, Die Hard MMA podcast fans? I've got a special treat for you tonight. Helping us break down this week's fight cards and doing a recap of last week is Mike Harrington. You may know Mike Harrington from the Believe You Me podcast with Mike Bisping and Luis J. Gomez. He is a producer for the Believe You Me podcast. Mike, what is going on, man?
What's good, big dog? How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, man. Doing fantastic. Coming off of a absolute shit show of a card in UFC Mexico City. How'd you do that night?
I had the exact opposite reaction to that card. I needed to. So Lewis and Mike gave me this stack of 500 BYM coins. Said you have 6 cards. No matter what, to turn this into 10,000, and we'll give you $1,000 real dollars. Coming into this last week in UFC Mexico, I needed a double up, right? I got a double up last week, double up this week, and then nearly double up in that final week, which I believe is going to be the Whitaker Adesanya card, to make that 10,000. I got there. I started out with 16, ended up a little over 32. So I'm very happy with the UFC Mexico card.
Holy cow. Wow, man, that is a tall order. I mean, for anybody that knows sports betting, that is not an easy task to pull off. Why'd you agree to that?
I mean, because it's like literally the only other time I've ever been offered cash is Michael Bisping offered me $5,000 to knock out Lewis at Skankfest. So, The cash opportunities are few and far between. The work is its own reward working with those guys. So, when they throw it out there, you just got to say yes before they realize what they're doing and try to back out.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. And just a heads up, I mean, I listen to the Believe You Me podcast pretty much religiously. I don't know if Bisbing is ever going to listen to this, but I'm going to be nice to you on my podcast, and I hope he doesn't think of me as a pussy for doing so, because I know you get nothing but, garbage talk, and they verbally assault you basically every episode.
Well, I mean, it's hard when they're out there just trying to do the best job they can to do an entertaining podcast, and I hit them with those weird things called facts. Of course, they're going to get a little angry. I get that.
They're not the biggest fan of facts. I love it. So, my podcast, man, as you know, we're all about the sports betting. We're all about MMA and all the action that we can get down on it. Do you have any kind of a history betting or doing anything like that, just for the listeners so they kind of get caught up to speed with you?
Oh, I am a degenerate sports gambler. I was actually just doing research, because I knew I was going to be doing this show today, and I kept coming up with fighters who were on UFC 239, and that's the card that it finally broke me. I had all my eggs in the Thiago Santos basket, all my eggs in the Holly Holm basket. I really thought that was going to be upset city, that card, and that really kicked my teeth in. So because of that, I strictly bet BYM Coin now, but I've been betting on UFC cards dating back to I think the first action I ever got was Machida vs Shogun 1.
Wow. Okay, that's a ways back. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like UFC 101, 102, something like that.
Oh, perfect, man. That's fantastic. And you used our favorite word, degenerate, because that's exactly what I am. And I have been doing this crap for a long, long time, and I haven't been good at it for all that long either. So this is perfect. Well, we're happy to have you on the podcast. Thanks for making the time to jump on with me, man.
Absolute pleasure, dude. I'm not going to lie. During this run, if you think about those numbers, 500 into over 3,000, that's over 600%. And a lot of that has been listening to your show every week. Before I write a blog for the BYMPod.com every single week, do like a little breakdown why the main event matters, basically. And then I get into my betting picks, and it's mandatory. I listen to you, and I check this one Discord server that I got added to. And that's pretty much where all my picks come from. So I do appreciate the work you've been doing.
Oh, for those listening, that was not scripted. I had no idea that was coming. That is like the best thing I could have ever heard, man. That means a ton. Thank you very much. That's awesome.
You're putting out quality content, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. Okay, all right. I can't pat myself on the back too hard. Let's get into the recap of UFC Mexico City. So, like I said, I felt like this was an absolute shit show of a card, at least for the last, the back half of it. I killed the prelims. Well, okay, I gotta take that back too.
I don't know about that, dog.
Oh, jeez. We started the fight night with for my picks anyway, we did a parlay. I was looking for Claudio Puelles and Sijara Eubanks to get the night started, and I kept myself a little bit out of trouble. I was so close to calling it a free money parlay because I saw no way that this would ever lose. Marcos Rosa does not belong in the UFC. He has zero ground game. And even though Claudio, he's a young kid, he's got a lot of, upside maybe later on. He's not there yet. But you just knew the UFC was throwing him a low ball here. So he grinds out that win, saw that coming a mile away. But I tied him to Sijara Eubanks, who has a massive ground advantage over Betch Correa. And she almost finishes the fight in the first round. If she had just hit the gas a little bit there at the end of the first round, she probably gets the TKO victory, never revisits the ground game, and then gets outpointed for rounds 2 and 3 to bust my 2-unit play.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, that I took that to that Discord server, right? Because I said I was thinking about making that exact play. I 100% was with you with the play less call. That just felt like exactly that. Like, we are trying to groom this kid into a prospect. He's on the curtain jerker. Let's give him somebody easy and try to build a star here. With Betch Correa versus Eubanks, that was so tough to me. Eubanks was I think one call away from fighting for the flyweight title a year ago. Now I'd be shocked if she still has a job by the end of the week. It's absolutely insane. But they kind of talked me off of it. Eubanks is a little bit raw. Eubanks, we've seen her now twice at bantamweight. It hasn't been good. It hasn't been good. It feels like flyweights are natural weight, and that might be a little bit tough for her to cut at this point in her career. I don't know how she goes forward in the UFC.
You know what? After the performance this weekend, I agree with you. I thought she had ironed out all the kinks. I thought she had found her new home in the bantamweight division, and I really thought I had seen some improvements in her last couple of fights. Even though it's been a rough road, I really thought it was all upwards for Sijara Eubanks here. But that fight, in my opinion, derailed all of that. She's phenomenal on the ground, but you don't lose to Betch Correia in a striking bout for 10 minutes. You just don't.
That was rough.
So, started me off in over a 2-unit hole because we laid 2.12 units to win 2 for that one. So that was a bit of a bitch to kick the night off. But Paul Craig, oh, my man Bearju came out of nowhere in round 1, man. I loved seeing that. Tell me you were on that one.
Dog, I will never not be game for a Paul Craig fight, dude. He is so much goddamn fun. 4 wins in the UFC, 4 performance bonuses. The guy gets it done in just flashy style. It's incredible.
Yep. He is a live by the sword, die by the sword kind of fighter. And I have gotten so much shit online for betting Paul Craig, but he's always in these like underdog money scenarios, and he's a freaking finisher. Like, even if he is the worst fighter, I mean, this time he was getting, even money or like plus 105, plus 110. Usually he's like plus 250.
Yeah, I know. I got him. I was very happy to get him in the fight where he got the arm bar or the triangle choke at 4 minutes, 59 seconds. He's always a bet-on fighter for me. And against Vinicius Moreira, I was like, this guy is not UFC caliber. Like, Paul Craig, for all of his faults, is a UFC caliber fighter. Exactly. Even the fact that like he looks like a drunken panda bear on his feet, like he's still the 3rd toughest man in his home country. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So like there is something to be said for a guy like Paul Craig. Exactly. Like, I had the KO, by the way. I had plus 800 on the KO. I feel like the ref was just a little slow on that stoppage. Moreira was completely out of it. And then when he went to sink in the choke, I was like, I'm glad I backed it up with the plus 350 on the submission. But that was rough.
I'm so happy to hear you hit both of those, because I know a couple people that did the same exact thing, and I took him straight because I saw the threat of both sides of that coin, but I told everybody I see a KO. Like, I thought it was going to be a TKO. I can't, if anything, Moreira's actually a good submission specialist, so I didn't think the submission was going to materialize, but you can't doubt frickin' Paul Craig. If he wants your neck, he's going to take it. But I completely agree with you, man. I actually had a full-on conversation with somebody on Twitter. I apologize if you're listening to the show. Your handle escapes me right now. But we talked about how, like, the last 2 weeks in a row, the refs seem so hesitant to stop fights. Like, I got robbed 2 cards ago by Misha freaking Serkinov when he pulled that reversal on, Jim Crute. When he pulled the reversal on Jim Crute and got the submission in round 1, you can watch the replay and see Serkinov, you can see the ref step in to stop the fight, and then he sees Misha go for the sweep and, steps back. I mean, they have been just so hesitant lately.
His head was bouncing off the canvas, and I was, like I said, I listened to your podcast, I listened to the endorsement of Crute. I know how sketchy Serkinov's chin was. I was on that fight with you, thinking the exact same thing. Like, his head was bouncing around like a pinball, like all that shit, dude. Like, it was there, and it is kind of cool though that these refs are letting these guys fight. Like, I do enjoy that. Where we did see some pretty quick stoppages earlier in the summer.
That's fair. That is fair, and that's where, I mean, you're going to get that variance. You know what I mean? Sometimes they're going to call it early, and that'll go for or against you, and then same thing on the flip side, man. Sometimes they'll be just a little bit late, and that's gonna burn some people, like we got burnt on that last fight. So this one was good, solid. I do think that he was late, but that's where Paul Craig's got the tools to get it done anyway, even though the ref didn't help him out one bit. So that felt good. Did you have anything on Sergio versus Tyson Nam?
That was actually my biggest play. So I did a 4-teamer. I did Puelas, and then I did Pettis over Nam plus the over. So I had 2 separate things running in that fight. And then my last one was later on in the co-main event. But this one to me was so easy on paper. I didn't see a path to victory for Nam, and I didn't see a path to a finish for Pettis. So, this played out exactly the way I thought it was going to. Couldn't be happier with this fight.
What did you get on that parlay? I'm sorry, it was a 4-teamer, so never mind. I'm wondering what the odds looked like parlaying Sergio Pettis with the over, because the bookies had Pettis by decision at minus 260.
Wow.
That was the obvious, all of us looked at it and went, yeah, Sergio probably wins a decision here, and the bookies thought so too. So I'm curious if you outsmarted them by parlaying the money line with the over.
Let me see, actually, because I remember about what they were. I think it was like minus 385 for both is what I got. So at $100, yeah, I mean it's like 58.69. So what is that? It's right around minus 200 for the So it is actually, that's better odds, significantly better odds than taking him by decision. And it was only over the 2.5. He could have gotten the finish in the last half a minute. So
yeah.
Or 2.5 minutes.
Outsmarting the bookies, man. Look at you. I love it.
Yeah, man.
All right.
So I think it was...
I didn't have anything on Carnelossi or Hill. Did you do anything with that one?
No, I mean, I leaned towards the over in that one, and I'm really glad that I stayed off of that one, because that would have just missed for me.
See, and this is where I wasn't on this, but I felt like this fight was very much like the last one. It had Angela Hill by decision all over it. Carnelossi is not a proven commodity yet. Hill is drastically underrated, in my opinion, and I actually feel like she's getting better at this stage of her career. But who saw the freaking TKO due to a cut coming? And that was a baby little cut. Who stops a fight for that cut?
Yeah, that was real weird. I feel like Angela Hill just gets in weird fights all the time. There's never anything clean coming away from her victories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a pretty fair assessment, actually. She's a little unlucky when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I really feel for anybody that parlayed the over or anything like that, because that was a home run. Angela Hill doesn't have knockout power, even though she clipped Carnelossi in round 1, which I was impressed with. She just doesn't put anybody away. She can't. And then the fact that she gets a doctor stoppage from that dinky little cut, I about died, man. I was actually laughing pretty hard when that happened.
Oh, man.
All right. And then, you know what? One of my favorite picks of the night. I'm sad that I didn't make this one my 2-unit play, because I was so confident in Kyle the Monster Nelson against Marco Polo Reyes. Poor Polo, his chin is just gone and demolished, and this fight should never have happened. His management needs to be slapped. You can't let a guy coming off of a bad KO loss cut an extra 10 pounds and come back in 3 months to try and fight someone with the offensive output of Nelson.
Yeah, that was unwise. And at altitude, mind you.
Yeah.
We're gonna go higher than Denver and have you try to fucking survive this. That was insane. I mean, that's that proves the limitation of this BYM coin thing. Because if I already had the money in the bank for Craig and had the 3 units of the parlay done, I would have put probably 500 BYM coin on Kyle Nelson. I just didn't. I didn't have it to bet in before we went live, sadly. But yeah, no, that was an excellent pick.
And you know what? And that's one where I'm kind of kicking myself for not going back and getting the KO prop. I mean, it just felt like that free money. Even if the KO prop was plus 125 or something like that, that's how I read the fight rather than laying minus 135 or minus 115. I should have just taken the prop and gotten whatever extra little sauce they gave me.
So you and I were talking about this on Twitter. It's going back and forth in the DMs. I'm a big fan of. I met him as Vegas Runner on the Be in the Book podcast, but you know him as Johnny the Greek. His whole thing was always sprinkle. Just if you're gonna take the dog, sprinkle. And that idea of just throw $20 on the KO. If you're gonna put 150 on the win, put 20 on the KO. Put 25 on the submission, because those little incremental things, when they hit big. I remember having Miesha Tate by submission. Miesha Tate in the 5th round against Holly Holm. And I had a ton on tape to begin with, but those props are what really made my weekend.
I'll bet. Yeah, I'll bet that was insane, man. I love those props. One of my absolute favorite things to do is in Max Holloway fights, I like to do rounds 3, 4, and 5. And I'll sprinkle all 3 of those in a row, because he just hits the gas as the fight goes on and eventually will break his opponent.
I think the most broken one of those is Yoel Romero in the 3rd round. Is you can still get that at plus 280 sometimes. It's have you never seen a Yoel Romero fight?
Right? Go back and look at the guy's record. Even look at the most simple record-keeping site. Like, go to ShareDog, and you can see Yoel KO, round 3, round 3, round 3, round 3, and yet you're still giving us plus 300 on it.
Like, if you want to give it to me in a fight where he's like minus 115, mind you know what I mean? Like, it's insane how much value is out there if you know what you're doing betting MMA.
I will never not bet Yoel in round 3. So the final fight for the main card, which was the safe part of the card for me, was Quiñones Teco versus Carlos Houchen, and I had a very, very strong lean to Teco taking this one by decision. I thought he was going to be too long and rangy. I thought his footwork was going to be too much, and I pussed out. I don't know what happened. I was a little afraid of Houchen's power because I know he can hit super hard, but I didn't make it an official play, and I think Teco by decision was like plus 140, and he was a minus 170 favorite or something like that. One more time, I feel stupid. I should have gone for it. I should have pulled the trigger, but completely passed. Glad to see I was at least right. That lets me pat myself on the back a little bit, but don't have any extra money in my pocket. Did you do anything with this one?
Nah, I have no feel for these bantamweight prospects. Like, there's, I couldn't tell you anybody outside of the top 15 at flyweight or pretty much bantamweight right now. So I don't, that's one where I can only take in so much, and it's kind of like college football to me, I love the NFL. I just don't have time for college anymore, so I kind of do discount, I'm not as much of a diehard with those prospects coming up anymore. So I didn't have really any lean on that one.
That's fair. All right. And now we go to the main event where Steven Peterson, the spinning back fist heard around the freaking world in round 2. I thought he was done in round 1, man. I thought, just watching him and his body language, it looked like he was gassing. And then in round 2, he spins and knocks Martin Bravo the fuck out. Holy shit. I didn't have anything on that one, but my buddy on Twitter, Rockstar Z, was on Peterson, and holy crap, I see why now. I was way away from it, but holy shit.
Dude,
I was sharing that video, man. I tweeted 6 people that don't really follow MMA. I was like, you got to see this.
Dude, I same thing. I was watching it with my buddy who is, he'll watch the Conor fights. He's that kind of casual. But I was like, yo, check this out. And they did the slow motion, and his jaw just it's moments like that make real fans, which I really enjoy. But there's something about that to me that frustrates me, where Bravo was the more athletic. He was getting his spinning back fist off quicker, and Peterson, just by dumb luck, trying it a half second later, ends up getting the win. You know what I mean? Anytime the less athletic guy wins because of being less athletic, that to me does not dictate future success. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm not hating.
He was spinning just a hair slower.
Yeah, it's Bravo got punished because he's quicker and that's insane to me that's how fighting works sometimes.
That's pretty funny. I actually never would have looked at it from that angle, but I can't discount the truth of that statement in some cases. That's hilarious. Oh, jeez. All right. So that brings us to the point where, I'm sorry, not quite yet. The night didn't fall apart just yet. Irene Aldana, she does what she does. She had a short notice replacement in Melo, who may very well not be a UFC caliber girl, gets it done by decision. I know a lot of people who had Aldana by KO or TKO because they just thought she'd be so much better enough to get her out of there. Another one I avoided. I don't like those big -5 and -600 chalky situations, even in parlays. So I passed on this one and just kind of wanted to watch and see what both these girls had. Not surprised by the result on this one.
No, not at all. This Bisping and Lewis both had Aldana in their BYM Coin parlays, and I couldn't get mad at them for it. But it was I'm eating a ton of chalk in this parlay already. Why complicate it? Make it a 5-teamer with this one, on the off chance lightning strikes.
Oh yeah, man. You know what? One of my favorite things to do, especially on the weeks where there are multiple big favorites on a card, I like to tweet out a poll beforehand, and I do who shits the bed. And let people vote on the 4 giant favorites on the card and see who the public thinks is going to just absolutely ruin everybody's parlays. And this is one where, yeah, when you do 3, 4, 5 team, even if they're chalky as hell, somebody's going to bust that egg more often than not.
Very frustrating, but very, very, very true.
Yeah, it's MMA, man. Human element. You can't prepare for that always. So the next fight is the one where everything got completely derailed for me. I was all over Brandon Moreno in this spot. I felt like he was the better fighter all around. Askarov has an impressive resume, but we don't know for certain that he was UFC caliber because he hasn't fought UFC caliber fighters yet. And even though I think that he's going to be something in the future, people are always sleeping on my boy Brandon Moreno. And the only type of fighter that I've seen beat Brandon Moreno to this point is a very crisp technical striker that refuses to brawl with him and won't go to the ground. And Askarov is all about brawling and going to the ground. I expected Moreno to just get the better of him here. And we got a 30-27 for Brandon Moreno, a 29-28 for Askarov, and then a draw from the final judge for a complete draw with judges' scorecards all over the place. And the craziest thing about it to me is I feel like all three of those cards are absolutely reasonable. Watching the fight, I can understand how you scored each round for a different person because rounds 1 and 2 were super close. And I think that Brandon Moreno in round 3 should have gotten a 10-8 personally. I believe he won the fight, but I can't blame anybody for scoring it the way that they scored it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you are giving... Okay, at that point, that does make sense then. If the guy giving 30-27 gave all 3 rounds to Moreno, then because I was like, how do you give one guy a 10-8, but then at the same time have it be 30-27? But that was the guy who gave the 10-8 to. Yeah, I mean, you can't get mad at it, I guess. Like, how it's a draw. Like, it's like kissing your sister. How can you get mad at that?
Yeah, I mean, I was frustrated because I felt like we were clearly on the winning side of this thing. When I watched the fight, I thought it was obvious that Brandon Moreno won. After I cooled down a little bit, I realized, okay, maybe you could have scored the first 2 rounds for Askarov. And that makes, like, they were close. So if you don't see fighting the way I see fighting, I can understand how you could get there. So it took me a little bit to calm down and make sure that was, okay. So in the end, I'm okay with the push there. But man, when you have a plus 150 dog and you're sold that they won the fight, it's just heartbreaking. I mean, I don't want to lose that unit, so I'll take the draw. But I was counting my money before I got it, and that's always a mistake.
Yeah, that is the worst feeling. I had that a couple weeks ago with like one of the undercard fights for the Vancouver card. I don't remember who it was. It was somebody who you were on actually, and the judge came out. I just thought it was 29-28. Across the board the wrong way. Very frustrating. But again, in this case, it's weird to me. I didn't have anything on this, but if I was going to put anything on it, it would have been the draw for the opposite reason. You know what I mean? Like, because I could have seen Moreno completely pick apart Askarov for rounds 2 and 3, but there was something about that, like, Dagestani brawler where I could see him just getting him against the cage in round 1, pummeling him and, gassing out, but clearly getting a 10-8 in that first round. So, like, I can make the case for it, even if that's not even a little bit how that happened.
It's so funny, man. Maybe that's something I need to reevaluate for myself, but I never, ever handicap a fight as a draw. Like, it's not even something that ever comes into my brain. And then whenever it happens in the fight, I'm like, what? Like, I mean, even Tyrone Woodley and Wonder Boy back in the day, I was like, who the hell would have ever said that those two fought to a draw? And like, same thing in this fight. I'm like, the way these two guys scramble, someone's getting choked out. I didn't think it would go to the decision. And if it did go to the decision, I'm like, somebody's mauling somebody else. There's no way it's a draw. So like, that one just, I don't know, caught me completely off guard. Like I said, I'll keep my unit. It's better than losing it, so I'm not going to cry too much over it. But I'm a little pissed off about the next fight. Carla Esparza getting the decision over Alexa Grasso. I feel like this fight was damn near identical to the one before it, and I was really frustrated with the judging on this one because if you gave Askarov and Moreno a draw, then Esparza and Grasso should have been a draw for the exact same reasons. If Grasso didn't get a 10-8 in that third round, what does it take to get a 10-8?
For sure. I actually had the fight scored 28-28. It was interesting. I'm looking here. 3 completely different judges for that fight versus versus the Esparza versus Grasso. So it was Sal D'Amato, Kimoji, and Puga for Moreno versus Askarov, and then Crosby, Bucacello, and Winter for Esparza Grasso. So,
that would explain it. That would explain why I had no idea what the judges were fucking doing at UFC Mexico, because I assumed it was the same 3 judges. And I'm like, you can usually pick out a pattern as the fight goes on of, okay, this is what the judges are favoring, this is what the judges are favoring, and you can kind of score accordingly as you get later on in the card because of that. And they were throwing me curveballs all night. I was like, I have no clue what these judges are looking for, what they favor, what they think scores well. I couldn't figure it out. Thank you so much for saying that, because I'm actually a little less heated about this fight now that I've heard that, because it makes more sense that it was a completely different set of eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes down to, like, I think Sal D'Amato is great. He gets a lot of shit, but, like, he is the kind of guy who, you know, like, he knows that he calls it 10-8 when he sees it. You know, like, that whole new scoring system where a 10-8 is supposed to be easier and you don't have to be, like, basically dying to get one. You know, like, that new scoring system, I think, it just, a lot of judges are very hesitant to score it like that. You know, but, like, to me, that was very clearly Carla Esparza in the first 2 rounds. I think she did enough with the takedowns, did enough to control Grasso. Even though she wasn't landing a ton of damage, she was controlling that fight until that 3rd round, when my heart was pitter-pattering out of my chest because I had the over. She got clipped in that first minute, and it was just 90 seconds of me screaming, like, there's no way she survives.
Yeah, I thought she was going out, man. And then when her arm bent backwards, when she was trying that armbar escape, oh my God. Like, I'm honestly surprised the ref didn't stop it at that moment just by going, yeah, that thing's broken.
Dude, it looked like it to me. I was like, how is that? But, like, I guess, like, Alexa Bliss in the WWE does that, where you can just dislocate your arm and fuck it. You know? Like, if you're still ready to go after that happening to you, like, I was so happy for Esparza to get the win. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I know it cost you money. I was happy she toughed it out and gritted it out, and I was like, look, if you can survive that, I can't get mad at you going home a winner.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm sad I lost money on that fight, but I'm actually a fan of Esparza, and I've bet on her several times because of her grindy style. I'm happy for her too, and that was nuts, man. I had Jillian Roberts came on the podcast a while back, and she actually talked about this. She was like, women MMA fighters no longer tap to arm bars. They're all too flexible. All the UFC caliber fighters are too tough, and they're too flexible. If you get them deep in an armbar, they're just not going to tap, and you can't bend it far enough to actually break it. So you're not going to get the ref to step in and stop it. She's like, that's why I choke everybody out.
Hell yeah.
Fair, right? Fair assessment.
Dude, like, they are... It's awesome. It's just so much fun to watch. Like, you know, like I can only picture how much pain she's in that moment. You know what I mean? And to not tap... It's like, you are a 115-pound girl. How are you so much tougher than me?
Right? And you know what? I've done a decent amount of jiu-jitsu. I'm a blue belt, and I had my arm popped once. And holy shit, I tapped faster than you can believe. It popped, and I was like, nope, I'm done. I was like, coach, I'm done for class today. Pop my arm. I'll see you in like a week after it feels better. I have no idea how she fought through that and to get the win. Like, well deserved. Props on you, Carlos Esparza.
Hell yeah.
So the main event, I mean, not a whole lot to say here. It took all of 15 seconds. Actually, maybe there is more to say than that. I rewatched the video, and man, I honestly feel like Yair Rodriguez kind of pulled a John Jones on us. It really looked like he intentionally opened up his hand at the last second. You can see he's at the end of his punch, and his hand is still above Jeremy Stevens' forehead, and then the fingers come out, and the fact that he gets both eyes when he swipes down at it, I'm like, dude, there's no way that wasn't intentional.
It frustrates me so much that refs just don't take points for that. You know what I mean? Like, in a situation like that, where it's so clear, you know, that, like, that was his intention to hurt his opponent with an illegal move, just take a point immediately. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, even if Stevens could continue, I think that needs to be a 10-9 round from there, especially because we see how handicapped these guys are going forward after an eye poke.
Yeah, yeah. Or I mean, judging by the way the crowd responded after the fight got called a no contest, if they DQ Yair there, someone probably gets murdered. But I think to me that was a clear disqualification type of spot. If you eye rake your opponent and your opponent cannot continue, it's not an unintentional foul, it's a DQ. I feel like that should have been a DQ win, and congratulations to Jeremy Stevens' betters.
That is, like, here's the thing. Yeah, that would have benefited me, but, like, for a foul like that in the first 15 seconds, I can't in good conscience lean that way. I just can't. You know, like, I get what you're saying, but, like, I don't care what you do, right? 15 seconds into a fight, we have no clue who won that fight. And that's what the UFC is supposed to be. You know, like, we're going to put the best fighters on the planet in a cage together for 15 minutes, 25 minutes, and the best guy wins. And I don't get a sense of that coming out of there, which is why, like, it sucks so much, but no one could be awarded a win there.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I really hope that they run it back. I mean, did you see the video of them getting into it afterwards?
Oh, in the hotel lobby?
Yeah.
Nah, Steven called in yesterday and told us about it on Believe You Me. Yeah, dude, actually, if you want to go check that out, it's up on our YouTube channel right now. Be Merry. Be a Mary, episode 1 something. But yeah, he called in, talked about Yair and him getting into it in the hotel lobby, and his recollection of it was Yair didn't want that smoke.
Okay. And you know what, man? Like I said, I listened to the BYM podcast. I will be listening to that episode. I have had some shit going on at work that I didn't have time. I'll get to it a little bit later this week. But I am looking forward to hearing that, because I do want to hear Jeremy Stevens' take on that. And the whole thing in the hallway, man, it was kind of bullshit. Because, I mean, I don't know. I was never a huge fan of Yair Rodriguez. I'm a fan of his skill set. But, you know, the whole situation that led to him being cut because he wouldn't fight Zabit in the first place back in the day. And then now that he's back in the UFC, I was like, okay, like, I'll give him a second shot. And then when this whole thing went down, he goes to confront Jeremy Stevens, like, in a friendly, like, I'm going to check on you kind of way, and then flips it on him, like, when they get face to face. I was like, that's kind of a dick move. I mean, you come up kind of, waving the white flag of truce, and you ask him, your eyes okay, but then you start berating him right after that. It's like, dude, that's a dick move.
That was, and like, not only that, but, like, talking shit about Stevens in Spanish. Like, apparently that was the whole thing. Like, all the shit talking he was doing when Bisping came over to interview him was, like, directed at Stevens, right? And, like, his thing at the desk when they did the hit with him, with, I think it was Woodley working the desk, they had that conversation. He was like, the guy was behind me in the rankings. I didn't want to take this fight to begin with. I got poked in the eye against Frankie Edgar. You didn't see me back out of a fight. I was like, dog, he couldn't open his eye.
I know, and that's what it came down to for me. He wasn't, like, blinking and had his eye. It wasn't a Todd Duffy. He could not open his eye.
That was, like, here's the thing. I can't, in my position where I have to talk to these guys, I can't ever speak poorly of a professional cage fighter, because, like, chat shit, get banged. You know what I mean? But
absolutely.
Like, seeing that in back-to-back weeks, Todd Duffy out with an eye injury in a no contest versus Jeremy Stevens out with an eye injury in a no, like, there's just a certain level of grit that Jeremy Stevens has that, like, yeah.
Man. You know what? It's funny. I can't tell you how many tweets I've deleted, because I'm like, this is fucking funny, and I'm gonna say something that's, like, really messed up, and then I'm like, shit, I do fighter interviews now. Like, I like delete it, and I'm like, what if I ever want to ask that person on the podcast and they listen to one episode and it's the one where I cracked a joke, or they see one tweet of mine and it's where I, insinuated that they quit, and I'm like, oh geez, all right, don't do that.
I just need to be able to defend anything that I say to that person's face, right? And I think that's, like, it's a good rule of thumb, Like, I talked a bunch of shit about Dylan Dennis earlier this year, but I would 100% say that to Dylan Dennis's face. So, I would not say that to Todd Duffy's face. I'll tell you that right now.
So, funny story about Dylan Dennis. He said something, like, months ago. I want to say, like, 3-4 months ago. He tweeted out, "You will become a Dylan Dennis fan." And I sent, like, an eye-rolling gif at him or something like that. I'm like, I can't stand this guy. He's the second coming of Conor McGregor, just not as good. and I don't like him, and I can't stand the guy. His last week or month or so of tweets, he's been nothing but awesome. So, like, when the YouTube dude calls him out and he's ready to step up and fight this annoying-ass YouTube personality, I retweeted that and I was like, son of a bitch. Dylan Dennis is going to make me cheer for him. I was like, he was right, that bastard.
Dude, if he does get in there with the guy who did the Suicide Forest video, I can't get mad at that. Right. Even a little bit. And it's frustrating. It is. Also, apparently Artem wants to fight Paulie Malignaggi in a rematch on that card. It's slowly becoming the like second or third best combat sports card of the year.
Oh my god. It's going to be like a light the internet on fire type of card, and all of us are going to pay to watch it.
Yeah. I mean, I missed the first one because it happened to be like happening at the same time as Lewis's pro MMA debut, so I was in the crowd for that. Otherwise, I 100% would have been watching that fight the first time, and there's no way I'm missing the rematch.
And believe it or not, it was a damn good fight.
Was it really?
It was actually pretty awesome. I mean, it's one of those things where you realize both of these guys couldn't hack it in the UFC. They're not UFC caliber, but they do have specific skill sets. And honestly, when it comes to the bare-knuckle fighting stuff, if you've got toughness, even if you're lacking in the technique to keep up with the UFC caliber guys, that toughness is what goes the extra mile in a fight like bare knuckle. The guys that don't have that grit, they don't have that ability to dig deep and keep going, that's where you win. Even though you're not the more technical, better fighter, you're tougher than that asshole, and you will punch them in the face harder and more often and not care about the damage you're taking. You win. And it's been really fun because neither of those guys would back down. They got busted up bad, and it was a back and forth bloodbath. It was actually highly entertaining.
I was 100% talking about KSI versus Logan Paul 1.
Sure. I was talking about Paulie Malignaggi and Lobov. My bad.
Dog, there was no way I was missing that fight. Are you kidding me? The GOAT?
Okay.
I would have had that on my phone in the crowd at Lewis's fight, probably with like both eyes on that, but still supporting. You know what I mean? You can't miss that, dude. It's the GOAT. Artem. I love him.
Okay, all right. And I'm like, you know what? Like, you're Lewis's buddy. Like, I would go support my buddy making their MMA debut. That is a reasonable excuse to miss something, even like the GOAT bare knuckle boxing. That would be like the one thing, maybe that in a funeral, that it would be okay to miss that fight.
Fair enough. So yeah, if they run it back, they're going to run it back apparently full boxing rules, which should favor Paulie because apparently in the first one, everybody was saying by like scoring, Artem would have won by MMA math, but Paulie would have won by boxing math. So I don't know, man. Like, screw it. Give him like do the 1-1, one in bare knuckle, one in regular boxing, and then do the trilogy in bring him back to the UFC. Screw it.
Yeah.
None of this matters anymore.
Why the hell not? I'm all about them making their cash, man. Let those guys go at it. We'll pay money to watch it. It's pure entertainment at that stage.
Hell yeah. Not to host your show, but we are about 40 minutes in. You want to get into this Copenhagen card?
Yes, sir. And I was just going to say that myself. I apologize. I tend to geek out about fight stuff, as you probably well know if you listen to my podcast, and you know your shit. So there's a decent chance that we could run as long as we felt like and would burn people's ears by the end of this thing. But let's go. UFC Copenhagen, my man. We are kicking the night off in the bantamweight division. Undefeated Jack Shore makes his debut against Nolan Hernandez. Jack Shore is 11-0. Hernandez is 9-3-0. Let's start with you, man. What do you have anything? Do you have any feels on this particular fight?
I have a feel that Nolan Hernandez made me a lifelong fan when he brought a rose to Brittany Palmer. Because shoot your shot, dog. Shoot your shot. Then he went in there against Marlon Vera on, I think, like 6 days' notice and put a hell of a fight on Chito Vera. For me, whenever I see that, like, it's like this next guy coming up in Lando Venado, where, like, as long as he's in the UFC, I'm going to be watching his fight. I'm going to be excited for it. And he's a bet-on fighter for me because he's exciting and he goes for it.
That is absolutely a fair point, and I am glad you brought up the shoot your shot moment because I forgot all about that, and he is a baller for shooting his shot with Brittany freaking Palmer, who, by the way, I know I try to play a little PC to make sure I don't piss off any fighters in case they come on the podcast. Brittany, you're my favorite Octagon girl. I love you, and even though I'm married, if you ever came on the podcast, it might be the best day of my life.
Don't let your wife hear this episode.
The problem is her mom listens to every episode, so I'm sorry, Laura. I'm sorry. But man, I completely agree with you. Hernandez, I got nothing but respect for this guy because of the fight that he took with Marlon Chito Vera. I mean, we talk all the time about people making their UFC debut, and when they come in at the deep end, it's a tall order. Marlon Vera, like, you do not want to fight that guy if you're 4 or 5 fights deep in your UFC career, but your first fight, holy shit, and he put him on him in the first round.
Yeah, on 6 days' notice or whatever it was, mind you. Like, he was prepping for a fight in LFA where he wasn't even a champion yet. So, like, process that for a second. He went in there for 8 minutes and 25 seconds with, a really, really solid fighter. I got nothing but love for this kid.
I agree. I'm in the same boat. And, man, Jack Shore, I think he's relatively well-rounded, but I don't know that he's UFC caliber in any area. I think he's good everywhere, but I'm not sold on this kid. And one of my favorite things in the world to do is fade people on their UFC debuts or fade people who are stepping up in competition, or at least when I perceive them to be stepping up in competition, because usually you falter. Usually you take that first step and you've got to recalibrate and go, okay, this is my new level now. And that's exactly what happened with Hernandez. He took a beating off Vera. Now he's going to get a full camp. Now he knows what it's like to fight in the UFC. And he's currently plus 150 over at 5 dimes. I can't pass that up. I thought it was gonna be a coin flip, and I was gonna completely avoid this fight. But at plus 150, I think I've got to roll with Nolan Hernandez.
Yeah, I agree, man. I like this is a guy I'm trying to look him up. He's apparently Welsh, which kind of scares me because those guys are, I don't know. Like, there's something weird about those, like, smaller UK isles that I get, like, a little nervous. Those guys. He's actually, looking here, he's the number 1 ranked out of 180 according to Tapology, UK/Ireland pro bantamweights. Nolan Hernandez, I looked him up earlier. He was like 170 in the world in bantamweights. So it's a little dicey, but I don't know, dude. Like, great. I really enjoyed the performance I saw him against Vera. 2.61 strikes landed per minute, 1.19 absorbed, 62% striking defense, and he goes for the takedown. Like, I think that was a problem for him in the Vera fight. He had Vera hurt, rocked on the feet, and went for a takedown instead of just following up. I think he got a little bit overexcited because he'd never been in a UFC fight before, and those octagon jitters are real. I don't care what anybody tells you.
Absolutely. They're real. The adrenaline dump is real. And that's where, I mean, he throws heat, man. He's got absolute bombs in his hands. And yeah, I got to roll that. I got to roll that dog dice. I mean, I know you talked about Jack Shore and his ranking in the academy he comes out of and stuff like that. But Hernandez trains out of AKA. It doesn't get a whole lot better than AKA. And then he goes out to Tiger Muay Thai for his second training gym. And if you've listened to the podcast, you know I'm a huge fan of Tiger Muay Thai. I think they're one of the best camps people can possibly go to. I know both of these guys are young, so they're both going to be improving, but there is no doubt in my mind that Hernandez is training at the better camps.
Fair enough, dude. I looked it up. It was the Tillery Combat Academy. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. He's going to put them on the map.
Okay.
So, all right, man. I love it. First fight of the night, and I got a big dog to roll with. I'm excited about that. I love doing that shit. Now we're going to go to the UFC's premier division, lightweight. I love this thing. It's stacked, man. Mark the Bone Crusher Diakese, 13-3, is taking on Lando Groovy Venata at 10-3-2. And this is one that I'm a little bit hesitant on. I came into this week, pre-tape, before I looked into this thing, before I really dug into it, I was going to tell everybody I was going to be on Mark Diakese. I'm really high on Mark Diakese. He's 1-3 in his last 4, and I expected him to be even money to an underdog here in this spot because of that. But he's lost to, in order, Drakkar Klose, Dan Hooker, and Nasrat Haqparast. All 3 of those are names that I believe are on a rocket ship to the top of their division. And poor Mark Diakese just happened to run into them. He lost a split decision to Drakkar Klose, very close competitive fight. And Nasrat Haqparast is mini Kelvin Gastelum. He's Kelvin Gastelum light. And the fact that Diakese managed to stay in that striking battle and not get his head taken off was impressive enough itself. And then after a war, he got submitted by Dan Hooker in the third round. I mean, it's one of those ones where I'm like, just tough break, dude. It's like being Ryan Bader at light heavyweight when John Jones is also the up-and-coming light heavyweight. It's just a bad roll of the dice.
Fair enough, fair enough. He does have a win against Joe Duffy in his last fight. That was his second decision win in the UFC. My book on Mark Diakase, and I felt like this, because the first time I saw him fight was in the Drakkar Close fight. Watching that fight, he has a little bit of Uriah Hall disease, right? Mm-hmm. Where it feels like he has all the talent in the world. He's a big fan of martial arts. He doesn't necessarily love fighting. And that's my biggest read on him, right? Is like, there's something about him where he doesn't have like that insane killer instinct. He's not always following things up. When he gets guys in bad positions, he doesn't press the advantage. It's more about like, look at this slick thing I was able to do, like off my back or land this kick. You know what I mean? Like there's something very odd about that to me.
Yeah, man. And you know what? I'm glad you said it that way because I feel like that's the best way to describe it. He does have Uriah Hall disease. And that's something in the Joe Duffy fight that I feel like he's actually improving on. I feel like he did start to put it together, and I feel like he won that Joe Duffy fight relatively handily. But Joe Duffy was, in my opinion, kind of a step down in competition from the previous three fighters that he had fought, and also, in my opinion, is a step down from Lando Venata. I would be doing him a disservice by not talking about him at least a little at this point. They call the man groovy for a reason. He's got footwork for days, and he's just as slick of a striker as Mark Diakase is. The only problem for me with Lando Venata is that he absolutely leaves his chin wide open. It's like he's using his chin as bait to get you to come in and hit him, and then he wants to counter you. The only problem is because of that, he actually gets hit a lot.
Yeah, but it's a very Diaz-like style where, like, I'm looking here, I don't think he's ever been knocked out. Like, he just gets by on being tough as hell and being like, all right, if you want to hit me, I'm right here, right? Like, there's no reason somebody of his caliber should be drawing with Bobby Green, right? Like, there's no reason. He's got 2 draws, right? There's no reason he should have lost the Tamor fight, right? He has such incredible talent. He does give away points. I don't see Diakase putting him out, though. You know what I mean? And, like, that to me says he might get frustrated, you know, and go for something. I don't know, man. Like, there's something about Lando Venata that, like, immediately I see his name on the card, I get excited. I seize the cross for Mark Diakase. It's like, this is, one guy is an absolute insane killer. The other one is a really good martial artist.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you, man. One of the things with Mark Diakase is I really tend to bank on his power, and you said it, Lando Venata has a head made out of cement. I don't think he's going to be able to KO Lando Venata, even if he does get that 1 or 2 opportunities to go ahead and land a big shot or something like that. And the biggest thing to me in this fight is the output, because Diakase, again, Hall disease, he likes to fight at a very slow pace. He has 2.89 significant strikes per minute, and then he absorbs 2.55, so small differential there. He is dealing more damage than his opponents, generally speaking. Given the level of competition he's faced, that's actually relatively impressive. But Venata, on the other hand, he outputs, it looks like 4.96 significant strikes per minute, so much higher output. But he absorbs 5.19 significant strikes per minute, so he is absorbing more damage than his opponents. I don't know, man.
I agree. However, I'm also looking here. Mark Diakase, 37% striking accuracy, so he's throwing at a lower output, and he's not landing nearly as much as Venata. That, to me, right, even if Venata leaves himself open, right, Diakase's not getting off enough to capitalize on it, whereas Lando's just going to keep throwing at him.
That's fair. That's fair. Do you have a play on this one?
To be honest with you, I'm going to bet the draw. I'm going to have money on Lando, but I am going to sprinkle on the draw because in my thinking, I do see a situation where Lando's able to go out there and absolutely put it on him for 2 rounds, right? Land pretty much at will, get some big shots in there, couple 10-9 rounds. I could see a situation where Diakase comes out, lands a gigantic bomb on him, puts him on his ass, and then keeps him down and just ground and pounds him for a round. 10-8. That's your 28-28 draw.
Wow. What kind of odds are you getting on that?
Plus 5,000.
Jeez. Hey,
So, why not?
yeah,
Sprinkle?
why not is right. That's beautiful. I was looking at this thing, and I was considering taking Lando Venata because of all the reasons that we just mentioned. I think he's going to give higher output, and he's just going to outpoint Diakese over the course of 3 rounds. You might have something there as far as the draw being concerned. But what I'm going to end up doing is putting 1 unit on Venata wins by 3-round decision, the prop over at 5 nines, because you can get that at plus 295. They're
Not
saying
mad at
that Diakese to win by decision is plus 155. They're expecting Diakese to win this, but I think that if Diakese can't put Venata away, Venata has a higher output and should win on the scorecards. I think getting 3-1 on this thing going Venata's way in a split decision isn't that far-fetched.
That's crazy to me that he's that much higher on the decision, or he's plus 150 on the decision, when he has had half of his UFC wins have come by knockout, half of his total wins have come by, or 6 wins by knockout, 1 by submission, 6 by decision. Like, it feels like it should be putting a little bit more juice on the knockout.
I completely agree. I mean, looking at their their records here, Diakese, he knocks people the hell out, but he's knocking lower level people the hell out. Venata's got the chin to hold up with this guy, and then when Diakese fights these higher level fighters, they're evenly matched. He lost to Dan Hooker by submission, but that one was in the 3rd round. It was on its way to a decision as well. Nasrat was a decision. Drakkar Klose was a decision. I think this one's going to be very similar as far as these guys being evenly matched. And then Venata has the exact same story. He KOs the lower level of competition. He got subbed out by Tony Ferguson. There's no shame in that. But besides his win over the absolute bottom of the barrel Marcos Mariano, who fought on last week's card, he's gone to a decision in his last 4 legitimate UFC fights. 2 of those being ruled draws, but all 4 of them decisions.
However, he does have a KO against the Bull, John McDessie, so don't tell me he can't knock out high-level talent.
No, that's fair. That is absolutely fair.
The fact that I'm putting McDessie as high-level talent obviously is the joke there, but I don't know, dude. Like, I agree with you. I do think these are guys who throw crazy bombs. I think that Venata's output and Diakese's hesitancy to throw is really going to be the story of this fight.
Absolutely. And I think, honestly, this is a simple value play for me. I think I am robbing the bookies blind by taking plus 295 on the guy that I think is very likely to win a decision as is. Moving on, we head to the women's bantamweight division where 5-0 Macy Chiasson takes on Lena, the Elbow Queen Landsberg. She's 9-4-0. I'll let you lead off on this one, man. What do you think?
I have no feeling on this fight. Absolutely none. Macy's probably going to win. Isn't she minus 450 or something like that? Like, this is a no play for me.
It actually looks like a ton of money has come in on Lena Landsberg, and Macy has been driven all the way down to minus 400, minus 380. I see as low as minus 365.
Okay. I mean, maybe. I mean, that's dog or pass to me then. And the juice is all gone from the dog, so why bother?
Yeah. You know what? You could not have said that better. I like Macy Chiasson. I think she rolls in this fight. She's younger, she's bigger, she's meaner, she's training out of Fortis MMA, which is fastly becoming one of my favorite gyms to look out for when these young prospects are coming up, because they are working miracles over there with those guys. And Lena Landsberg is 37 years old, which when it comes to women, when it comes to men, my benchmark is 40. When it comes to women, 36 is where I start looking at it and going, all right, you should be dipping off a little bit here. Well, she's 37. She is not getting any younger. And she's got 3 KO TKO losses already in her career. Her last win was over Tanya Evinger, who to me is a completely broken commodity at this point. That doesn't mean anything to me. And I expect this fight to look a lot like the Aspen Ladd fight did. I think Macy gets her on the mat and just pounds her to hell.
Fair enough.
Let's not spend a whole lot of time on it, man. I think even with all that money coming in on Lena Landsberg, I don't buy it. If you wanted to parlay Macy Chiasson, you could. But again, I'm not touching a minus 400 line. Next on, we move on to featherweight, where my boy that hurts me almost every time, Brandon Davis, 10-7-0, takes on UFC newcomer Giga Chikadze? Chikadze? How do you say that?
Not even going to try, dude.
See, the problem is I have to try, and I'm terrible at it.
Why do you have to? You're not commentating this fight, and if you were, they give you a pronunciation guide.
That's fair. That's fair. I like to. Do you listen to the Anakin Florian podcast ever?
Not in quite some time.
Okay. I actually like it. They've got a guy on there that comes in and does a sports betting pick type competition with them. And they do the pronunciation of the week challenge. And they give him the hardest name on the card to try to say correctly. And because it's Anik, he's actually got the fighter files where they pronounce their name the right way.
Oh, that's
and then
awesome.
grade him as to whether or not he got it right. It's kind of hilarious, actually.
Very cool.
All right. So Brandon Killer B. Davis. The dude has had a rough go of late. He is 2-4 in his last 6. And he, in his last 2 fights, went 1-1, a weight class down. He is coming back up to featherweight, where I think he belongs because he's an absolutely massive man. And he's welcoming Giga to the UFC. Now, Giga is 7-2. 5 of those wins have been by KO. And I do have a little bit of information on Giga that I think is interesting. He's actually a professional kickboxer. He fights in Glory, and he's got a 6-3 Glory kickboxing record. He has a minus 2.01 strike differential. So his opponents are actually hitting him by 2 strikes per minute more than he is hitting them. He has 40.92 accuracy on those strikes. Brandon Davis was just recently promoted from purple belt to brown belt, so he's now a higher Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu level here. And even though he's been having that rough skid, he has 5.05 significant strikes landed per minute versus 4.40 significant strikes absorbed. So even though it's not a massive margin, he's outlanding his opponents when they strike on the feet. So this dude's a kickboxer transitioning over to MMA. He's already been submitted once and lost his, first pro debut, which that's to be expected. Killer B is leveling up as an MMA fighter, moving back to his home division, and I really, really want to bet him here, but I feel like an addict who's asking for one more crack rock because I keep losing on this damn guy.
Yes and no, though. Like, it feels like they realized what they did, right, matching him up. This is one of the hardest runs you will ever have entering the UFC. Beat Austin Arnett, Dana White's who's in a contender series, Kyle Bochniak, Enrique Barzola, Zabit, and then Kai Young, who I'm not trying it. But Randy Costa and Steven Peterson, both guys, they're 100% UFC caliber talent. So, they're something about this guy the UFC clearly likes if they're keeping him around after he's gone 2-4. This feels like a get-right situation for him.
I do agree with you, and I think that he's got all the skills, man. He kind of has a little bit of Uriah Hall disease himself, not in the being flashy aspect of it, but just in the fact that he can't quite put it all together. He's got it all there. He does tend to gas out later on in fights. That's a problem with him when it's like a grappling-heavy match, which we don't expect from Giga here, considering he's got a kickboxing background. If anyone's going to be doing the grappling, I think it's going to be Brandon Davis, considering he got that shiny new brown belt. And I'm very, very tempted to take Davis. I'm looking at the props here because I can't trust Brandon Davis at minus 140, minus 150. That's about where he's sitting right now. But to get Davis inside the distance is plus 300.
I was looking at the same thing.
Dude, he's a new brown belt. You don't think he wants to show that thing off? And against a guy who's a striker that probably is going to be a little out of his element on the ground?
Gang, gang.
I love it. You know what? And that's where I have to. I didn't want to make this many picks. And coming into the podcast, I actually didn't mean to make this many picks. But I'm looking at the lines live as you and I are going through this show. And they don't always have the props out by the time I get to do the podcast. So I'm kind of like a kid in the toy store right now. I'm taking Brandon Davis inside the distance at plus 300. And that's one that I can sleep at night, even if it doesn't cash. Because 3-1 for this guy to choke out a UFC newcomer that probably doesn't have a ground game? Come on.
Yeah, 3-1 in a situation where we've seen his hands put guys on their butt. And this guy absorbs 2.1 more strikes per second, or per minute. This kind of feels like a no-brainer to me. This has club and sub written all over it.
Right? He rocks him, gets him on the mat, chokes him out. I love it. Even if Giga chases him to the ground, if Giga is the one that does the rocking and Brandon ends up on his back, triangle. He's
So-
never out of it at that price.
Yeah, here's my thing. I think that if they fought this fight 100 times, he would get a win inside the distance more than 30 times. So there's value there to me.
You know what? That's a perfect way of putting it. That's an excellent way of putting it, because I would think he would finish probably 5 or 6 times. And if we're getting 3-1 on it, that's more than enough.
Not bad.
So we are going to move to welterweight. Sair Badrazada is taking on Ismail Nurmagomedov, and those are some names, boy. Sair is 24-7-1. Ismail is 18-3-0. Lead us off, man. What you got?
I just know Shair's been in the UFC since, dirt was invented. So I don't really, against a young up-and-comer who's been fighting nothing but other young up-and-comers, it feels like, yeah, we're just going to feed you like a legend and just put him out the pasture.
I tend to agree. That is kind of how this one feels. Sair also tends to have injury issues. He has fought, let's see here, he fought in 2013, disappeared for 3 years. We didn't see him until 2016. He only fought once in 2017, and then he did manage to get in the cage twice in 2018, but this is his first time we've seen him in 2019, and it's well documented that he's been pulling out with injuries between those things when he's had some fight schedulings. So I completely agree with you. I think this is a fight that the UFC is trying to set Nurmagomedov up with, and the line reflects that. I mean, it's a reverse line movement spot where 52% of the money has come in on Badrazada. Only that 48% of the money has pushed Nurmagomedov from being a -175 to a -190 favorite. I mean, it's not a massive line movement, but I'm always wary when I see those reverse line movement spots.
No, I agree. And if you look at the guys who he's fought, if I'm not mistaken, who is this? Is this Stun Gun? Yeah, he lost to Stun Gun, lost to John Doomsday Howard.
Haven't heard that name in a while.
And Curtis Millender. You know what I mean? He was the dude. The dude has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 UFC fights, and his first one was on Fuel TV. Process that for a second, right? This guy should have more fights under his belt. He should have a bigger resume. Honestly, he's a little bit too old for this sport at this point, and injuries are kind of a bitch. But it is what it is, dude. You made it into the UFC in 2012. It's been 8 years, and you haven't made a mark yet. Let the new kid get a shot.
Yeah, and he's only 18-3. I mean, he lost to Chance Rencounter in his last UFC fight, and I am super high on Chance Rencounter. I don't count that against him whatsoever. He made his UFC debut against Michel Prazeres, and he won that fight. I mean, Michel may be getting old himself, but Ismail snapped his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fight win streak in his UFC debut.
Wow.
Yeah. I think Ismail Nurmagomedov is the way to go in this fight, but I don't like the line. And I mean, I can understand if you want to use him as a parlay piece. He's getting close to that -200 ballpark where you can tie him up with another favorite and bring that down a notch. But yeah, I might pass on this one. I may actually end up taking my own advice and using the Austrian Wonder Boy in a parlay. Now I'm kind of talking myself into this, so we'll see. Put a pin in that.
All right.
How about you, man? Are you? Do you have any bets on this one?
No, I mean nothing. No play on. Nothing. There's nothing that excites me with the inside the distance. Nothing crazy with this fight. I agree. He may become a parlay piece later. I usually figure that out last, though.
Okay, fair enough. And I will be completely honest for my listeners. Like I said before, I have got some shit happening at work, and I haven't had a whole lot of time this week. So there's a couple of fights on this card that I simply have not had the time to look into. So I might glaze over a couple things, and like I said, keep an eye out for my Twitter, because I absolutely might have some more plays later on this week once I get a chance to dig into those if I decide I see something that I like. Mike, do you ever tweet out your plays?
I mean, what I do is I write my full blog, and I put that up, and I direct people there, and I let them know throughout the card. I don't just give out my plays on Twitter. I'll announce if I cash, but it's I just keep posting that same blog post over and again. Hey, go check this out now. While there's still an hour left in this card, you might be able to make some money. The one thing I will do though is if I couldn't get a play on, last week we were looking at, there was a couple, if I could hedge my parlay, I would do it in this spot, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the kind of plays I throw out on Twitter.
Okay, fair enough. we are headed to middleweight, where Alessio Di Chirico is taking on Makhamed Muradov. And he's another Russian Ov, man. These guys are taking freaking over. He's from Uzbekistan. Dude is 22-6, making his UFC debut against my boy Alessio Di Chirico, who I'm a huge fan of. He's 12-3, and his last loss broke my heart. I had a good bet on him against Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland was a wounded animal out there, and Di Chirico couldn't manage to put him away and lost the decision. And that about killed me.
Well, I mean, Eric Spicely and Bojan Volikovic, when those are your losses, and your wins are against Alawale Bamboos, to me, it doesn't jump off the page.
Yeah. I mean, he's another one of these kids that I think he's got something, and I think he'll become something. He's only 29 years old, so he's just now coming into his physical prime. I'm expecting good and big things from Alessio Di Chirico in the future, but I don't know if this is it. This looks like a spot to me where the UFC is trying to welcome another Russian monster and get them a win. He's kind of being thrown into the middle of the pack here. We know Kevin Holland doesn't have the best fight IQ, like you said. He's lost to Spicely. Bangboze obviously is a bit of a wash as far as name value goes. So I think the UFC is trying to get one over on him, and because of that, I kind of want to avoid it. Also, I don't think that there's enough juice on Di Chirico at this point to make the shot worth it. He opened up as a plus 140 underdog, and this actually is a reverse line move situation that I would agree with. 68% of the money has come in on Muradov, and he has dropped from being a minus 160 favorite to about a minus 140, minus 145 favorite. The heavier money, the more important money, has come in on Di Chirico, but I think the value has been pounded out of him. He's down to plus 125, plus 120, and given everything I just said, like I said, I am high on the kid, but I'm a little scared of the spot. Even though I agree with the reverse line movement spot, I don't know if I want to make this play yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of how you are successful as an MMA gambler is to lay off a ton. Like last week, I had Paul Craig, and then like submission to knockout, and I overloaded on Paul Craig because that was my guy. I overloaded on the parlay because I was very confident in all four of those plays, and I overloaded on Jeremy Stevens because I thought Jeremy Stevens would win. Like trying to fit these other guys in there, it's it feels like you're taking out like 3 Jenga blocks at a time. Like, don't be a hero, dude.
Yep. Okay. Fair enough. I will keep my wallet in my pocket for this one. Although looking at the props here, Nurmagomedov wins. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one here. Nurmagomedov wins by 3-round decision at plus 130. If you like him as a favorite, just take that damn prop. Alessio Di Chirico's tough as shit. He's not going away in this one. So I'm not going to make that play, and I wouldn't make that play. But, yeah, man, if, oh shit, I'm looking at the wrong prop. That's not even the right fight. Damn it. Scratch that. Never mind. Forget what I'm talking about here. It actually is better. Muradov wins by 3-round decision is plus 205. So, like I said, if you think he's going to get this one done, I don't see him finishing. Take the extra money there, because 2-1 on that sounds pretty damn good. I'm going to pass because I think Alessio Di Chirico gets it done, but I can't trust him at this point. We come to the preliminary card main event where Alan Amedovski takes on John Phillips at middleweight. Alan is 8-1-0. John Phillips is 21-9-0. And Mike, what do you think of this one?
I love John Phillips. That's for irrational confidence, just strong, heavy-hitting middleweight. Like, he's in that Paul Craig tier to me, where, I don't care. I'm not missing a John Phillips fight. I'm not doing it. So for that reason, he's always a bet-on guy for me. Phillips inside the distance is only plus 130. He's plus 105 to win the fight, inside the distance, plus 130. By decision, plus 550. They know, this dude he's coming back with his shield or on it. The only one I can think that went to a decision, did the Marshman fight go to a decision? I think it did. The one where Jack Marshman left his, he left the Welsh military to go fight a UFC fight and got court-martialed for it.
Yep, that's the one.
I love dumb stories like that. 18 KO victories, 3 submission victories, has never won by 3-round decision. 34 years old, 30 fights under his belt with a no contest in there. He's a kid. He's fighting a kid. He's got less than, he's got 10 pro fights? Yeah, come on, man. John Phillips, all day. All day.
All right. He is the Welsh wrecking machine, and I feel like that name is very appropriate for this guy. Adamovsky is 8-1 though. He's another one of these ones coming out of the Russia area he's got some Ov in his name somewhere, and he got ground out by Krzysztof Jotko in his UFC debut, which that's another one of those ones where I can't really hold that against him. Jotko's a damn good fighter. 8 of his 8 wins have all gone by KO, though. He has a 100% KO rate. This fight is going to be an absolute banger, man. I mean, 18 KOs versus 8 KOs, and the 8 doesn't sound all that impressive, but when it's a 100% KO rate, that's pretty freaking awesome.
Dude, I don't mind. Like, I know this is crazy juice to land a prop, but fight doesn't go to decision minus 215.
It's only minus 215?
That's not bad.
Dude, that's a
not bad.
parlay piece if I have ever seen one. Fight doesn't go to decision is at minus 215 because there's no way. There's just no way. This guy, Krzysztof Jotko is a grappler. He's a heavy grappler. That's the only reason Adamovsky got to the decision in the first place. John Phillips doesn't go to decision unless people survive. He got subbed out by Charles Byrd and Kevin Holland. I mean, if there's ever going to be a stand and bang fight, it's this one. I don't think I'm going to touch it. They're lined super evenly. John Phillips opened a slight favorite and has since flipped to being a slight underdog. The market's a little unsure, though, because he's still, I guess he's still the underdog technically, even though he's minus 111 over at Bookmaker and minus 110 at Bovada versus minus 120 for Alan Adamovsky. So he's a slight dog here. Like I said, I'm going to pass. I'm going to sit with popcorn and my shots of Fireball for this one. Do you have a bet here?
I want to see what the specific round bet is going to be, because I feel like if it's minus 215 for the decision, then like a round and a half might be minus 110. 2.5 rounds might be, like minus 130, minus 140. So I think I'm going to wait until day of, see what that line looks like, and I'm probably going to hammer the under.
Okay, that sounds good. And, this might be one kind of like we were talking about earlier. Pick your guy, and then pick rounds 2 and 3 on the round props. Forget round 1. I mean, I know John Phillips goes for it in round 1, but you're not going to be getting a decent price. Bet on whoever you like to win in round 2, and then just sprinkle rounds 2 and 3. And unless you're getting like 3 or 4 to 1 on round 1, which if your bookie does that, they're kind of stupid. You can just sprinkle all 3 rounds.
Yeah.
I've actually done that before in like a 5-round fight where I'm like, it's not going the distance, and they give you the right numbers. If you can get like 5 to 1 on round 1, you just sprinkle the same exact amount of money on all 5 rounds, because you're getting your money back if you get the win in round 1, and then if it finishes anywhere after that, you're gonna have plus money on that because the odds get ridiculous after that point. Obviously, that only works if your fighter wins and if they finish. But if you're confident that those 2 things are going to happen, that's kind of a fun way to have a small sprinkle, I feel like, on fights.
I did that in the Cejudo fight, Cejudo Dillashaw.
No way!
Yeah, man, Cejudo by round 1, I think, was like plus 6, or his round 1 knockout was like plus 850 or something like that. And then I just kept betting that over and over for rounds 2, 3, 4, 5. And that ended up working out pretty. That's probably the most money I've made on like a single fight card. That was insane. I
think Cejudo is my most bet and most won money of any UFC fighter. He has been an absolute cash cow, and I've taken him by KO. I took him by KO against, just like you did against Dillashaw. And I'm sorry, I'm mixing it up. I did take him against DJ, so I got that big, juicy, fat number when he dethroned DJ. But I didn't take him in round 1. Props to you for doing that. But I took him by KO against Dillashaw, and I think it was like plus 260 or something like that. So juicy enough. And I did the same thing with Dillashaw against Garbrandt. I got Dillashaw at like plus 200 by KO against Garbrandt. So that division has been good to me.
Yeah, dude, I'm not gonna lie. I'm looking at his record here. I know I was against him on Joseph Benavidez for personal reasons that I'll talk to you about off air. And then, but I was on him for his entire run with Wilson Hayes, Sergio, DJ, TJ, and then, of course, the Marlon fight.
Beautiful.
Yeah, man, he's been pretty awesome.
Dude, I actually saw the Benavidez fight in person. My best friend took me to Vegas for my birthday, and that was on the fight card. I think it was the Ultimate Fighter one, and actually we'll touch on this again. That's the first time I ever saw Ion Cutelaba or Jared Cannonier. They fought at heavyweight on that card as well. And
great card.
It was a great card, man. For generally the Ultimate Fighter finale cards can be kind of garbage. That one was awesome. And we got in for like $50.
They did give us a fight of the year, though, 2 years ago, I want to say, with Gaethje versus Michael Johnson. That was I think that was the redemption main event.
And I feel like they're full of hidden gems. Like when you look at the tough cards, the tough finale cards, usually you're like, what is this shit? And it's not until after the fact. Like we're looking back in total hindsight here. Now we know all of those names. You know what I mean? But that night, when my buddy was like, hey, dude, let's go to the fights, I'm like, dude, you're not going to know anyone on the card.
Dude, that's why I love these European cards, though. Like, 'cause I remember watching Darren Till at, 4 in the morning. You know what I mean? Like, I remember a lot, Leon Edwards, nobody shows him any love because his fights are always on at, 2 p.m. in the afternoon, you know? I love these European cards for that reason. They are specifically for the diehards, which is why I wanted to come on for this episode more than anything.
Great choice, because this card, I've been calling it a diehard's delight all week. This card is an absolute treat if you follow MMA, if you're a fan of the UFC. This card is stacked with talent. And when you talk to your Conor McGregor watching asshole buddy, he's not going to know anyone on this card. But we are in for a treat.
Well, if he does watch it, he will fall in love.
Yes, he will.
So you want to get into the main card?
Yeah, let's do it, man. We kick off at welterweight. Nicholas Dalby, 17-3-1. Against Alex, the other Cowboy Oliveira, 19-7-1 with 2 no contests. Man, I don't know what to do with Alex Cowboy Oliveira because he is one of those dudes that just brings it. He's fun as shit. He's dangerous on the feet. He's dangerous on the mat. He's explosive. He's athletic, but he can't seem to put it together. I feel like he's almost solidified his gatekeeper status. He's kind of a mid-tier guy that just will never put it together enough to get to that upper tier. He loses to anybody that's headed up, but he will put scrubs back in their place at the bottom of the prelims. And I wonder if maybe that's what's going on here with Dalby. The locomotive fighting out of Denmark, he's 17-3, so not so bad. He did have a draw with Darren Till back in 2015, and his last fight was a no contest due to an unsafe surface at Cage Warriors. So kind of an odd start to him here for his second UFC stint. But he is riding a 3-fight win streak. What do you make of this one?
I mean, dude, this is Cowboy or pass to me. There is, like you said, he is a gatekeeper for, at this point, the top 15. You want to say, top 13, top 12, whatever. He's clearly, to me, leaps and bounds ahead of anybody who they've thrown at him other than, I'm just looking at his thing right now, and it's what the hell? He had the decision against Mike Perry, but it's Yancy Medeiros beat him. Not mad at that at all. Gunnar Nelson submitted him. Not mad at that at all. Goes out there, beats Carlos Condit, Ryan LaFleur, Tim Means. Didn't he introduce Will Brooks to the octagon?
I think he did. Now that you say that, let me pull up Will Brooks' record here. He may have. Okay, so no, Will Brooks got Ross Pearson before that. That's right.
Either way, I just exactly like you said, going back to 2016 when Cowboy lost to RDA, and then his next fight was Cowboy versus Cowboy. That you look at the guys who he's lost to, and they're all either top 15, borderline top 10, could be title contender guys. The guys who he beats are old guys past their prime or young guys who just don't belong, among the elites of the division. I don't think Dalby belongs among the elites of the division. So this is an easy one for me.
Okay. And that's fair enough, man. You actually appear to be getting a break here because Cowboy opened up as a minus 185 favorite. And this is another one where, again, we're looking at these things live when we're doing the podcast. I was like, I'm going to completely pass. Because as much as I do think that this is a Cowboy spot, I'm not paying almost 2-1 on this guy. With the kind of run that he's had, I do think he may be, even though he's only 31 years old, he's in his physical prime. I feel like he's almost on the back end of his career after, coming off of those 2 losses. He should come out guns blazing because no one wants to go 0-3 in the UFC, even though Oliveira is a fan favorite. I don't think he's in danger of being cut if he drops 3 in a row just because he's so damn fun. You still don't want that. So he's going to be coming out looking for a bounce back spot here, but I just didn't like the price. Money has come in on Dalby. Cowboys down to -150.
Okay. I mean, dude, the card's in Copenhagen. Of course the money's coming in on Dalby. You know what I mean? Like that, to me, it's just great. Like we saw that with the card in Abu Dhabi. All the hometown guys got bet up because that's just how people are. Guys who've never bet on the UFC are now making accounts on 5 dimes to bet the hometown kid.
That's a fair point. That is a fair point, and I honestly didn't even look at that. You are 1,000% right, and that might make some people some money because I agree with you entirely. I think this is a Cowboy side of things. The biggest thing that I saw with Nicholas Dalby rewatching his fights, he doesn't have takedown defense. He just flat doesn't have good takedown defense. And if you don't have takedown defense, Cowboy is going to body you to the mat. And then once you get there, dude's got crazy ground and pound. He's got 6 submissions. I wouldn't be shocked to see Cowboy inside the distance here.
Cowboy has had 1 decision since 2016. It was against Mike Perry. If you can survive 3 rounds of Mike Perry, I'm not mad at you for going to decision. Alex Oliveira comes back with a shield or on it. I like this to end inside the distance at -120.
Well, son of a bitch. Now I'm looking at the props. And I sound like a total asshole after you rattle that off there that he's only been to 1 decision. It's like, well, no shit, Clint. He's not going to go to a decision.
I don't see it. I think that, especially again, for whatever reason, it feels like to me, these European cards, there's always a bunch of submissions, bunch of knockouts. It's a bunch of guys who are on a bigger scene fighting in front of, fans who are super excited to see them because they never see the UFC, and for whatever reason, it produces really exciting fights.
Yeah,
and this feels like one of them.
Now, to be fair, Dalby has never been finished. He's got 3 losses. They're all by decision, and he did go to a majority draw with Darren Till. So the dude can take a beating. He did have a UFC stint before, and even though he won his debut, draw with Till, and then dropped 3 fights in a row, he's still never been finished. So I actually do think I'm going to stick with my pass on this one. If you want to take that prop, you can get Cowboy, who's the -150 favorite. You can get him inside the distance at +135. I do like flipping the favorite to becoming a dog to take them by finish in spots like this. But I actually have had a decent amount of bets that I wasn't planning on put on the card already. So I've got to kind of sit back and think about how hard I want to fire on this card. Keep an eye out Twitter because that one might be coming down the pipe later. Are you going to make a play here?
The only thing that, like I said, the -120 feels way safer to me because Oliveira has been stopped quite a bit. Like you said, he is getting up there in age. To me, that is Dalby's route to victory in this fight, and I think he knows that. I don't think he can do enough, to grind out a decision against somebody like Cowboy. So, he's gotta put it all on the line, and that's the only way I see this fight ending not in Oliveira's favor. You know what I mean? So, to me, I like, either guy inside the decision at -120.
Mike, I'm going to tail you on that. I'm just going to straight tail you on that play. I don't know how I missed that, and I feel like that's a combination of value and being safe, because if Cowboy is slipping like I kind of said he was, yeah, you're right, he gets finished. He's a live or die going out on his shield type of fighter, and then if he comes out guns blazing, there are very few men who can withstand that kind of punishment. Fight not going the distance at -120 sounds like a fantastic spot, and I'm going to take it, even though I probably shouldn't.
Sorry to be a bad influence on you.
No, you're a great influence. I'm a complete degenerate, and I'm going to end up having like $3,000 on this card before the night is over. So we're moving up to the big boys. Light heavyweight Michael Lord Olajeszuk is taking on Ovince St. Preux. Michael Lord is my young rising prospect in the 205-pound division besides our boy Johnny Walker that I'm the most excited about. He's 14-2-0. OSP is 23-13-0. And I'm going to let you go ahead and lead this one off, man. What do you feel here?
I mean, dude, this is Jeremy Stevens all over it. Who is this guy? I've never heard of him. I have no idea what his tape is, and the fact that I'm getting OSP at plus 2-1, I can't say no to that. I apparently you are a much bigger fan of this guy than I am. I looked at his record. He's beaten Gadzimir Antigulov, who was my 1-0 club and sub light heavyweight prospect for a little bit there, but other than that, he took a year off for a banned substance, and now he gets OSP in a spot where OSP desperately needs this win. He's as much as I'm not I hated OSP and I felt like John Jones stole his soul. And then he came back after the 3 losses in a row, put on a hell of a performance, knocked out Corey Anderson with the head kick, the Vom flu chokes. To me, he is that kind of guy, that same situation. He's the gatekeeper to the top 10 at light heavyweight, and I don't know enough about this guy to say that, yes, he belongs in the top 10 at light heavyweight.
Okay. All right. And you know what? I'm actually glad that we disagree on this one because I keep getting comments about people every time I have a guest. They're like, Clint, you really just bring people on the podcast to agree with you, don't you? So this is fantastic for entertainment purposes that we disagree on this fight. I am all over Lord in this spot. I could not be higher on this kid. So you're right, he is coming off of a suspension for a banned substance, but he's only 24 years old, and that was 3 years ago at this point. So he's the kind of guy who's going to bounce back from something like that and be just fine. He's not a 38-year-old fighter who gets popped for performance-enhancing drugs, which I'm going to sidebar for just a second, because freaking, what's his name, just popped for performance-enhancing drugs. And I couldn't be more pissed about it because I wanted to fade him for his next 2 to 3 UFC fights. David Branch popped for performance-enhancing drugs, and the performances he has had in his last 2 to 3 fights, how do you justify taking performance-enhancing drugs and then coming out and doing those quit jobs?
It's the wildest thing. He is the most frustrating fighter I've had to bet on or against in the UFC.
Dude, if you're taking a paycheck, if you're just showing up for a paycheck, why are you wasting the cash on the performance-enhancing drugs? Cut the costs, save some money, and just get the ass whipping and take your check.
Fair point.
So I am going to rattle off some stats here. Michael Lord is 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. He's going to be the smaller man here versus OSP's 6'3". The man is a giant, and he does have an 80-inch reach, so he will have a height and reach advantage here. He's going to be the bigger dude. OSP has 2.62 significant strikes per minute that he lands, but he absorbs 2.8 significant strikes per minute. He does get hit more often than he hits. And Lord, on the flip side of this thing, averages 5.66 significant strikes per minute, and he only absorbs 3.87 significant strikes per minute. There's a large differential for how often he hits somebody hard versus how often he gets hard. He's got very good striking defense, and he has a 100% takedown defense rating. OSP averages 1.3 takedowns per 15 minutes, so just over 1 takedown per fight, but he's only got a 40% takedown success rate. I see this fight going one of one ways. I think OSP is getting older. I think you nailed it with John Jones having taken his soul. I think that OSP is going to struggle to get the takedown, gas out. Michael Lord is going to work the body with punches and kicks like he always does. And as soon as OSP slows down or flounders for a takedown, this thing ends up on the mat with Michael on top, and I think Lord TKOs the shit out of OSP. And even though, that being said, I should take him inside the distance, I have taken advantage of the line as much as possible, and I've already laid 4.4 units at minus 220 to take a 2-unit play on Michael Olejniczuk.
I mean, here's the thing. When you're reading off those stats, and you obviously don't have a video on this, but you could see my face. The 3 more significant strikes per minute is what really puts this. I have to kind of agree with you there. OSP is the kind of fighter who can be bullied by guys who have massive outputs. He doesn't know it's not that he doesn't know, like, how to defend it but like, he's the kind of guy who can get bullied, who can get overwhelmed with insane pressure. And it sounds like that's what this guy's bringing. 5.66 strikes per minute, landed per minute at light heavyweight is insane. It's a crazy high number for guys who hit as hard as they do.
Absolutely. And he's kind of honestly, he kind of reminds me of a young Cain Velasquez. He is smaller for the division, but he makes up with it. He makes up for it with his speed and his punching power. He just doesn't stop, man. These bigger boys like an Ovince St. Preux, they've got one or two shots, and if they don't get you with that, this guy is going to make you work, and then your gas tank is empty and you won't be able to land that killing blow. So I'm all over Lord in this spot, and the bookies agree with me. Getting Lord inside the distance is minus 155. They expect him to finish this fight.
Yeah, I mean,
you're not getting any value taking Lord inside the distance here.
I can't disagree there now that I'm seeing this, because like I can 100% picture OSP against the cage just having his hands up and getting bodied to the belly. That's kind of an issue.
And that's kind of what happened in the Nikita Krylov fight. I mean, he had his moments, and I actually thought that OSP was going to pull it off against Nikita Krylov, and then in round 2, he had nothing. Had absolutely nothing, and got subbed out by Krylov.
Yeah, I mean, clubbed and subbed by Alir Latifi, too. He was able to pull the submission off against Tyson Pedro. But I'm looking here, he's had one decision in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights, winning or losing. He doesn't like to fight. He doesn't like to fight the full 15 minutes. I appreciate where you're coming from with that. You got me off that play. I'm not going to be on your play, but I'm off OSP now.
I'm happy to hear that because I feel like I'm saving you money. Even if OSP happens to cash here, I mean, he KO'd Corey Anderson in 2017 with a 3rd round head kick. That's an anomaly. That doesn't happen. I don't see him beating Michael in this spot. And if something crazy does happen like that, I really think it's a fluke. I think OSP wins this maybe 1 or 2 out of 10 fights.
Fair enough.
So moving on up, we've got this card turns into an absolute barn burner at this point, dude. I love it. I own the Hulk Cutelaba 14-4-0, taking on Khalil Roundtree, fresh off of his beating of Eric Anders, who's 8-3. This fight has me upside down. I wanted to bet Khalil Roundtree because I got to shout out my boy Rockstar Z again. He coined the term Tyleal when he came out with that, old school Muay Thai stance with the front knee bouncing and everything in his fight against Eric, your boy Anders, and looked phenomenal. I'm like, you nailed it, dude. Tyleal is it. I'm calling him Tyleal from now on. But I think he's going to have a massive striking advantage here against Ion Cutelaba. But we know Cutelaba is offensive. We know he packs a punch. We know he's mean as shit, and he's got a serious power double leg because he can lift heavyweights over his head if he wants to. I mean, if he wants the takedown, you're not stopping him. And unless you're a guy like Glover Teixeira and you've got a black belt in your back pocket, you're probably not going to sub him either. I want to touch base that I watched him fight Jared Cannonier, and I actually had a pretty big bet on Ion Cutelaba against Jared Cannonier back in 2016. That was that card that I got to go to, the Ultimate Fighter 24 finale. And Jared Cannonier robbed me of my money because that man started his career at heavyweight. I think he got up to 380 pounds or something like that before he started MMA training. So he came in as a heavyweight, and Cutelaba couldn't put the dude away. I was like, who is this flabby, out-of-shape, dad-bod looking dude coming in here to fight the Hulk? And Cutelaba hit him with the kitchen sink, and Cannonier just kept coming. So, I mean, Cutelaba's flawed. He's young. He's 25 years old. I think he's got some serious upside. I think he's going to get better. I think he will be a problem in a couple of years. But I honestly don't know what to make heads or tails of this fight because I don't think Khalil Roundtree can knock him out. And I know that Khalil has a striking advantage. So it all comes down to whether or not Cutelaba can get it to the ground. And then once it hits the ground, has Khalil worked on his ground game? Because in the past, when it hit the ground, he was a fish out of water. He couldn't get back up. If you remember when he was on the Ultimate Fighter, he was the shut the hell up, ma guy, because He was getting ground out in the Ultimate Fighter. His mom was there in the Tough Stadium screaming at him, and he was more annoyed with his mom than the professional MMA fighter on top of him. But he sat up and screamed for his own mom to shut up in the middle of the fight.
That is insane. I don't remember that at all, but I am looking here. Takedown accuracy, 66%. Kudalov is only going for 1.64 every 15 minutes. However, Roundtree's takedown defense is only about 52%, so it does seem like if Kudalov wants to get it there, and he does want to turn up, his takedown average and really try to, grind this one out, he's got a pretty decent shot, man.
Yeah, the thing that's causing me to hesitate here, I've got a buddy who's on Kutalaba in this spot. And the thing that is causing me to hesitate is we have seen so much drastic improvement from Khalil since he went out to Thailand. So I can't count out the fact that maybe he's also worked on his takedown defense or get up game. I don't like the line in this spot at all because it's close to a pick'em, and I really feel like we're flipping coins here. Khalil is sitting at minus 125, minus 135. Kutalaba is plus 110 and up to plus 115, down to plus 105. Very, very slight dog. This is about as coin flippy as it gets. And because of that, this is another one that I'm going to take a second shot of Fireball and eat some more popcorn because I'm a fan of both guys. I feel like I'm biased in both directions. Ion Kutalaba has not been knocked out in his career. He has only been submitted. So I don't know that Khalil can finish him just because he's got that brick of a head. And if Khalil can't finish him, both of them have gas tank issues. I could see Khalil winning a clear round 1 and then Kutalaba getting on top in round 2 and round 3, but not being able to put Roundtree away and winning rounds 2 and 3 and getting a decision that way.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you about any of that. I mean, like, I think there was a time, right, where they were looking at him like, all right, he's got a couple of wins. Let's try to feed him to Gokhan Saki. They fed him to Johnny Walker. They tried to feed him to Eric Anders to build that back up. And now he's in a situation where it's like, oh, he's fighting the guys who he should be fighting. Like, this is cool. This is a fun change of pace. And because of that, like you said, it's a coin flip. There's absolutely no reason to put money on this fight. Unless,
I agree.
You have a real problem.
If anything, I want to keep an eye out for the totals. Because when the totals come out, if they set the over-under at 1.5, I would maybe look at the over. If it's a decent line and they're giving it 1.5, I would look at the over. Now, bookies aren't stupid always, so I think given what he did with Anders in his last fight, they very well make it 2.5. But given Kutalaba's tendency to not get out of the first round, maybe we can get that 1.5. So stay tuned for a decision on that one. But for now, it's a pass. We will move on we've got a welterweight fight here. Gunnar Nelson, 17-4-1, is taking on Gilbert Burns, his second UFC fight at 170 pounds. He is 16-3-0. And Mike, what do you feel on this one?
I mean, again, this feels like Gunnar or pass to me. Like, this is... Yeah, I mean, Gilbert Burns is he's an up-and-comer. He's doing, like, come on, dude. It's Gunnar Nelson. Like, we just need to respect, like, there was a time when Gunnar Nelson was a top 5 welterweight. You know what I mean? Like, and the guys who he lost to, there's absolutely no shame in it. Santiago Ponzinibbio, Leon Edwards, Demian Maia. I mean, Rick Story in a split decision is your worst loss in the UFC. You've had a great UFC career. Do I really think his worst loss in the UFC is about to become Gilbert Burns? No.
Okay. That's a fair take. We're going to be going head-to-head on this one, man. I tweeted out earlier in the week, I locked up Gilbert Burns at minus 125 because I felt like that line was going to move and get away from me. It looks like Gilbert Burns is sitting at about minus 145, minus 150. So congratulations, Die Hard podcast followers. If you tailed me on Gilbert Burns, we beat a decent sized line move here. Now, if the line does get a little too out of hand, I think there will be value on Gunnar Nelson just for all the reasons that you listed off there. But I think you're being a little unfair to Gilbert Burns if you say he'll be the worst loss on Gunnar Nelson's record. The dude is a legitimate world champion, second-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's training with Kamaru Usman, and his striking is definitely improving. I actually think this fight is going to be a stand-up war because Gunnar Nelson is also a second-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And of the two of them, I think Gilbert Burns' striking is a lot more straightforward and going to be a lot more successful in MMA. That's not to say that Gunnar Nelson can't squeeze a win here from him, but I think it's one of those two grapplers both think they have the edge on the feet type of spots. And the X factor in this is that I think Gilbert Burns working with a guy like Kamaru Usman is going to have the wrestling advantage. So if anybody takes it to the ground, it will be Burns, and he won't be afraid to play with Nelson on his back because if he's on top, he's winning the fight in the judge's eyes.
Yeah, sure. There is a certain part of me, though, that just says, like, I'm looking at it here, like, guy got KO'd by Dan Hooker. Certainly Gunny doesn't have that kind of power. I'm looking for the KO wins on Gunny's record here, and they're all in promotions like Adrenaline 3, Anger Management, Cage of Truth. Like, all right, I can see where you're coming from on this one. Sure, I maybe didn't know Gilbert Burns had a second-degree black belt. I generally think whenever Gunnar Nelson gets in the cage with someone other than Maya, he has the grappling advantage. So that's why I was initially leaning to him. Second fight at welterweight, are we sure this guy belongs there? You know, he's beaten Alexei Kunchenko, which is, I mean, I'm sure you're going to be bouncing your kid on your knee one day telling him about the great Alexei Kunchenko. But, you know, like, this is a massive step up in competition for him. So I'm always going to lean towards the veteran who I've seen way more of his fight. That's just me.
And that's a fair take. And I'm glad we've got another head-to-head pick here. This will be fun on fight night for us to tweet at each other when this thing goes down. I do want to poke a small hole in your Alexei Kunchenko there, though. I think Gilbert Burns absolutely belongs at 170. He was way too big for the division, and I think that's part of why he got knocked out by Dan Hooker. I think he's been cutting way too much weight to try to make 155. When he made his short notice debut against Alexei Kunchenko, everyone was talking about the size difference. That's all I heard. I took Gilbert Burns on that fight as a big underdog, and all I heard about was how big Alexei Kunchenko would be. Dude was 20-0 at that point and won his first two fights in the UFC. So everyone had written off Burns. Burns looked like the bigger man when he stepped in there against Kunchenko, and he was the clear dominant winner. He took Kunchenko down, which was something not a lot of people are capable of doing. He was the physically more powerful fighter. So I think he belongs at 170, and the longer he's at 170, the more he's going to acclimate. I think he's just going to get better. And he's actually filling in on short notice for Thiago Alves in this spot. Gunnar Nelson was supposed to be given a tune-up fight here. And Alves pulled, and Burns is stepping in on short notice to spit in Gunnar Nelson's cake. So I think he's going to be game planned for the wrong type of fighter as well. And that's one more small thing that I give in favor of Burns for this one, because Burns, he's shooting his shot, man. He's looking at Gunnar Nelson and going, I can beat that guy. Whereas Gunnar Nelson has been training this whole time for a guy that is probably going to be a layup for him. And now he's getting a much stiffer test.
I was actually listening to Eugene S. Robinson on the Care Don't Care podcast from Bloody Elbow. Those guys are great, by the way. And he was talking about, like, he liked the idea that Gunny was in camp waiting for a fight where Gil kind of just got off the couch and had to make, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to take it because I love Gunnar Nelson. This is going to be you've talked me into a pass again. That's like a fair standstill. I'm fine to just talk shit during your bet. You know what I mean? Like that's so much fun to me.
I like it. All right, that'll work. And I mean, I feel like that's a fair take on the fight because I got the best of the line with Gilbert Burns. I hit it right when it opened, so I don't know that I'd want to lay minus 150, minus 160 on him. I do think he wins, so it's one of those things where if you're a casual bettor and you just need a sweat on the night, Gilbert Burns is my pick to win the fight. So go for it, but I don't think the line value is right. And like I said, if money keeps coming in on Burns and Nelson gets up to plus 140, plus 150 by the time fight time rolls around, I feel like you almost got to hit that at that point too. So this will be a fun one, man. I'm definitely looking forward to it. It should have been the co-main event, but for whatever reason, it's not. We move on to the co-main event of the evening, where Mark Madsen is making his UFC debut versus Danilo Bellardo. Yeah, so Mark Madsen is 8-0. He is a 2-time Olympian, and he's the three-time Olympian. Apologies. And he's dropping to 155 for the first time in his career. He's 8-0 in MMA, and he has been smashing cans his whole way through. So he's the local flavor on the card. He's the co-main event, not because he should be, but because the fans are going to come out to see this guy. And Bellardo is a lamb to the slaughter here.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is like what I'm not gonna lie. We've been going for quite a while, and I do have a show to get to. So for me, like the only thing I can say is dog or pass. Yeah, it's fun. Like he's the hometown guy, but I'm seeing at SportsInt which I'm assuming is international. They have him at minus 465. He's got a silver medal in Rio. He's clearly should win this fight. But I can't in good conscience lay 465 on a debutant. I can't. So what are we doing here?
I agree. This one's a complete pass for me. I want to watch it. It's always fun to watch high caliber wrestlers get into the UFC and see what they can do. My bad, man. Didn't know you had another show to get to. Let's wrap this thing up. We've got the main event here. Jack the Joker Hermansson taking on Jared Cannonier. Jack is 20-4 with Jared Cannonier being 12-4. I think you've got a take on this one. Who you got here?
Jack the Joker Hermansson. This is the reason I wanted to do this show. I love this guy. He's so much fun. His last win was against Jacare. What more does he have to do to prove that he not only belongs in the elite at middleweight, but he should be getting a title shot? And this is a massive step down in competition for him. It's an absolute joke that he's fighting Jared Cannonier. The only reason that I think he's taking this fight is because it gets to be in his home country. It's an easy payday, and it keeps him active while Adesanya and Whitaker fight next month. Apparently, Paulo Costa's been named the number one contender, so he's going to need to keep grinding out, keep getting exciting finishes. It's the only reason I could see him taking this fight. Jared Cannonier, in my mind, is not the same class of fighter as Jack the Joker Hermansson. Bang.
And did I or did I not on Twitter tell you that I was more than likely going to take Jared Cannonier in this fight?
Yes, you did.
And I have completely changed my mind on that. After you told me about Jack the Joker Hermansson, I dug into the tape, which I always do, and that's why I've got to go back and watch tape, because if I go purely off of memory, I make mistakes. Jared Cannonier is tough as shit, and he is a former heavyweight trapped in a middleweight's body, but he gets hurt, man. He gets hurt with straight punches to the face, and he has next to no takedown defense. The Joker is going to box this guy up, and as soon as he puts his hands up to cover his face, he's going to end up on his ass. He is strong as shit, so he will more than likely stand back up, but the submission offense game of Jack the Joker Hermansson is no freaking joke, and if he finds himself on the mat more than twice in this fight, he's going to get choked out. I completely agree with you after digging into this a lot deeper. Cannonier is a powerhouse, and I'm excited to see him KO guys like Anderson Silva and David Branch, but I don't think he's going to get said KO on Jack Hermansson. The only guy that's been able to do that is Thiago Maheta Santos, and Cannonier is nowhere near that level or caliber of fighter. I'm with you. I'm not going to make a bet on it because I think the line is too wide at this point, but Jack Hermansson may be the other half of that parlay piece I was talking about before later in this week.
I don't hate that. Combined age of the two guys who Jared Cannonier has beaten at middleweight, 81 years old. What?
Yes.
Process that for a second, dude. That's insane. Now he's fighting a young, hungry killer in Jack Hermansson. This is an absolute mismatch of a fight in my mind.
He's made himself just interesting enough for the UFC to let him get some shine on the Joker.
This is like when Eric Anders got the headline fight night against Machida, and everybody was like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? This is crazy. I do like, I'm looking at it here, Jack the Joker Hermansson minus 155 to win inside the distance. I do not hate that. Yeah,
it's a 5-round main event, so even though that's a little bit more wood than I'd like to lay on an inside the distance type of prop, there's no way this one's going 5 rounds, and if anybody's finishing it, it's probably Jack. Man, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I know we went way long. I was having so much fun chatting with you. I apologize. If there's anything you want to shout out, if you want to give your handles on social media or anything like that, now's your chance. The floor is yours.
Just at the M Harrington. You can catch me every week, not only on Believe You Me, producing and giving facts to the boys, but on Run Your Mouth. It's Robbie Bernstein's podcast that I co-host. It's available SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, the whole nine. Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This is an absolute blast.
Thanks for coming on, man. We'll have to do it again. I appreciate it.
Nope. Have a good one.
So we need to say a collective massive thank you to Mr. Mike Harrington. He was an absolute pleasure to have on the podcast. I hope you all are excited. I got into a disagreement. We did not agree the entire card. In fact, we had a couple of different picks that the two of us were on. That was fun. I would love to have him back. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the episode. I feel like having a guest every now and again is a good time to break down these kinds of cards, especially when they're like my cousin Judd and Mike, where they're degenerate gamblers and they love getting into it with me on this kind of thing. So that is what we've got. Let's recap those picks. To start the night, we are going to roll the dice on Nolan Hernandez at plus 150. I think that line is simply too wide. We are going to take the prop bet Lando Venata wins by decision at plus 295. We're going to roll the dice with my boy Brandon Davis to get it done inside the distance and put his shiny new brown belt to work at plus 300, taking some big swings this week. I love it. We are going to rock with Gilbert Burns, minus 125 to just be the more well-rounded, better all-around fighter. We're going to take Daly Oliveira. Fight does not go to decision at minus 120. And then we are going to have a 2x play on Michael Lord Olajayshuk. We are going to lay 4.4 units to win 2 at minus 220. And the crazy thing about this is I might not even be done. I've got a couple more fights I want to dig into. I might have a parlay for you. Follow me at DieHardMMA Pod on Twitter for the updates, because I might have more action coming your way. We're going to rock this shit this weekend. We're going to make some cash, and we're going to have a huge score this weekend. I love you, everybody. Thanks for the follow, like, retweet, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's roll.